You know, these stories are getting to them when you see them every single day. And that's what's happening now, ladies and gentlemen. And that's also an indicator that this low birth rate is serious, is at a critical level. Millennials, and one of the things that I have been reading probably for the last 2 years is the millennial generation aren't having babies. Many of them would much rather focus on their careers. They would much rather get promoted on jobs than have families right now. And not to mention, they're not even buying houses like the generations before them. So that was another thing I saw earlier this year, how the millennials are literally not buying up houses like the baby boomers and the other generations before them. So it's a lot of problems, and you can tell they really want these millennials to have babies, because they're right at that age. They're in their 20s and 30s, and they're at the age where many people years ago had babies. So hey, there is just there's a spirit on them that just don't want these things like their parents did. So this came out on the Wall Street Journal, May 28th, 2019. America Millennial Baby Bust. Americans are having fewer children, and the latest news in that is the US birth rate has dipped to a 32-year low. Cross-party coalition in Washington think political intervention might mitigate the decline, but pump the brakes. Declining US birth rates are the product of large cultural forces that the federal government can't buy off with subsidies or income transfers. The decline in birth rates reported by the Center for Disease Control and Prevention isn't all bad news. The birth rate among teens 15 to 19 fell 7% last year to 17.4 births for every 1,000 women, down from 61.8 in 1991. This should mean more upward mobility. Yet millennials are having fewer children as they delay starting families into their 30s, below replacement rates. That's what they're really concerned about, y'all. These millennials are not having babies, or they choose to wait, and it is sinking the birth rate. Their decision to do this. So it's below replacement birth rates mean more strain on entitlement programs like Social Security and less ingenuity from human capital. That's what they're concerned about. So fewer children, it's like the domino effect. So now it also impacts the economy. See, they're not spending money on a family like the generations before. So that means they are putting less money out here in the economy, spending less money than the generations before them. Labor and investment drive economic growth. And if there are fewer people, capital will have to power more of the US economy. More immigrants will also be essential if we don't want a declining population. Immigrants are not going to save what America's going through, y'all. It's not saving Europe. Just look at Europe. Europe birth rate has been on the decline, and they've been publicly talking about it since the 80s. And they got immigrants pouring all over Europe, from Africa, the Middle East, all over, going in there. It's not stopping the inevitable. It's not going to stop it for America either. Immigrants are not going to be able to replace what's going on here. These days, both parties seem to think the first response should be income retribution. The theory is that it's too expensive to raise children, and thus the government must subsidize families. The left wants universal child care, paid parent leave, a larger child tax credit. You see, they're doing the same thing Europe is doing. And don't be surprised if you start hearing them say, "Oh, if you get married and have a family, we'll give you a free house. We'll give you X amount of time paid leave off from work." They're going to start doing the same thing Europe is doing. Pay them to have babies, and that never worked over there, and it's not going to work in America. A fraction of the right supporters much of that agenda and payments for women who exit the labor force to raise children. See, didn't I tell you? So the right wants to pay women, and we know these are white women, to have babies. It's not going to work. It's already been tried and failed all over Europe. It never worked. And it's not going to work in America because money is not going to fix what's wrong, ladies and gentlemen. It's genetic. And they keep trying to say it's all these other things. It's not any of those things. It's genetic. Money is not going to be able to correct it. Yet, it isn't obvious that subsidizing families would help. It's no coincidence that family stability is in the worst shape when government's role is largest. The welfare state has reduced the incentive to raise children in a home with two parents. Low-income men may not earn enough to attract partners, but at least now they're benefiting from faster economic growth due to tax reform and deregulation that are driving wage growth for the least skilled. Further up the income scale, the picture is more complicated. The share of Americans over 25 who have never married has about doubled since 1960. And that is true. That goes back to what I was telling you guys. When I was growing up, and even around the time when I got married, there were weddings everywhere. I mean, these churches would be packed with wedding parties all over the place. In fact, it was not unusual for you to drive down the highway and run across several wedding parties. Now, I can go out driving all day Saturday and won't come across one wedding party and limos going down the road. Not one. I go past churches and those churches are closed. So I do notice it, and I can't be the only one that noticed that you don't hardly see anybody getting married anymore. And you know this got to be taking toll on the catering business. Look at all these places that cater to, all these places all around that, and that was their specialty, catering to parties and weddings and retirement parties. They're not getting business like they used to. Things have really changed big time. Those who do marry are having fewer kids. That's true. Now you have a lot of childless couples out here, more than you ever had before, for a variety of different reasons. Some just don't want children, and some just can't have children. This is why the fertility clinics and fertility in general in this country is booming. I did an article last year, and it said infertility treatments for men has gone up 700%. Western men. Okay, one popular explanation is that this is a function of money. Americans are stuck in a two-income trap as both spouses must work to afford health insurance or childcare. Student debt is another shackle. Federal government deserves plenty of blame. Both parties have failed to reduce healthcare costs, which are bid up by a system run on third-party payments. No. What America did is set up a system, and the system all throughout the generations got greedy and started overpricing and overcharging people on everything. Now they are at the point where they can't really reduce the prices of taxes and everything that they charge you now because the country will fall. And there's no safety nets in place for this declining population. They never thought this was going to happen. So they didn't plan for it, ladies and gentlemen. This is what they're shaken up about. Now, anything that they try to do at this point in time is a day late and a buck short. They are really having a problem coming up with something that is really, truly going to work. This is why you see these states now turning to criminalize women getting abortions. They are at the point of desperation. And that's what you're seeing. Now, are politicians responsible for this? Yes. Yes. America has made the place unaffordable to these young people. So now they got to function in a whole different way because they just can't, on their incomes, they can't afford the same things that their parents could. And yes, this is America's fault. This is the fault of the people that are running this country. You ran it in the ground. Now you don't have the population to sustain it, and you know it, and you're dying out. You can't replace the generations before, and eventually you won't be able to keep the wealth. You won't have nobody to pass the wealth to. It's impossible to keep wealth when you're not reproducing. It's impossible. And they set themselves up for this. You made the whole world believe nobody could run things better than you. And we're now seeing that's a bold-faced lie. It's a lie, plain and simple. So colleges have pocketed student loan subsidies to raise tuition, which encourage debt. Exactly. As soon as you make the decision to go to college in America, you are already in debt. And many people can't work their way out of that debt. Like I said, they overprice things to the point where it's unaffordable to many of these young people out here. Yet, instead of fixing these dysfunctions, one proposal is to repeat the same mistake on childcare, provide large subsidies for buyer and sellers. What's that line about? The definition of insanity? Yeah, because they don't know what else to do. Like I said, you got people in charge that are not going to take this world to the next level. They are literally stuck and can't get out. And we have been seeing this for quite some time. Measures of income don't account for rapidly increasing consumption. Exactly. Our contributions, Phil Graham and John Early recently explained how government metrics don't account for raising living standards. Exactly. You got these employers out here that are stingy. And as each year rolled by, they don't give you a cost of living raise. They try to give you these little remedial raises that don't keep up with the times. But this is how they chose to run the society, ladies and gentlemen, and now they're paying for it. From houses that are enormous by historic standards to innovation in cars, Americans now expect annual vacations and entertainment that not long ago were available only to the affluent. The uncomfortable truth may be that two income trap is more about maintaining a certain high living standard than it is access to a decent life in America. I mean, it's ridiculous. But these things are happening all around the world. The evidence from around the world is that natalist policies can't offset these cultural trends. Singapore fertility rate has declined since the 1990s to about 1.2, which is way below replacement, which is 2.1, even after decades of government payouts to encourage more children. That's why I'm telling you, it's already evidence, ladies and gentlemen, that paying people to have babies have failed. Now, they're telling you in Singapore they have been doing this for a few decades, and they are still at a 1.2 because the problem is not about money. It is a genetic problem going on with these people. Japan's fertility rate is at 1.4. And remember, they were giving free houses away to anybody that's having a family, and they're still at a 1.4. What does that tell you? The US is at 1.7, is welcoming immigrant workers after trying everything else. So they are throwing the kitchen sink on this whole issue. Years-long maternity leave in Nordic countries come with trade-offs, like fewer promotions for women. Hungary is offering housing subsidy, tax break, and even more. Even if some miracle Hungary manages to lift its fertility rate in the long run, good luck recreating what worked in a small. See, they are a small society, ladies and gentlemen, and they are failing. I'm just telling you, these European countries are failing. I remember reading about their tumbling birth rates in the 80s. In fact, there were people on my job talking about this. And they knew even back then it was failing. Homogeneous population in Europe and diverse, dynamic America, home to 327 million. It's too soon to write eulogies for the American family. No, I think it's the right time to do it because you're not getting the American families that you saw before. As often in history, events and cultural changes define narratives of decline. Family subsidies or mandates that require higher taxes and business costs to counterproductive in reducing the economic growth that makes parents more optimistic about a better future for their children. Government could do some good by mitigating the higher cost of family life that it has caused. That's right. It's the people that run the nation, the people that are patting themselves on the back and telling all of us they're in charge. You caused this whole thing. This is your fault. You caused this. And now you can't do nothing about it. From healthcare to education to zoning and housing regulation, especially in metropolitan, misgoverned, and progressive for decades. Perhaps government could, for once, have the modesty to correct past mistakes before embarking on new ones. They can't. They can't even figure out the mistakes they got in front of them. It's not mistakes, ladies and gentlemen. Really, this is a clear sign of people in charge and don't know what the hell they're doing. and haven't known what they were doing since they've been in charge decades ago. So as you can see, they are trying to toss the kitchen sink at this thing, and it's still not working, and it's not going to work. No matter what they put in place now, it will not work. They waited too long to be concerned, not only here, but in Europe. There were plenty of things that could have been done, but now, hey, this is a problem they're going to have to deal with. And they're going to continue to watch their decline each and every year because nothing is stopping. This baby bust is not stopping. The opioids are not stopping. The suicides are not stopping. Nothing is stopping. So they are going to have to just stand face to face and look at their own demise. But please tell me what you think, ladies and gentlemen. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family.